Hello, this is Azrael, and today we are going to be talking about magic sigils. What are they, and how do you make them? Well, for starters, all a magic sigil really is a symbol that is infused with a intent, and it represents that intent. It can also represent a name, a place, as well as representing names of spirits or gods. Basically, anything you can think of can be turned into a magic sigil for magic rites. There are countless ways to create them. In this short video, I'm going to show you at least two ways to make them, one being the most common. One of the ways I used to make sigils when I was younger was I would use a form of automatic writing, which is kind of like for those who do not know, kind of like a Ouija board, only using a pen and paper, contacting my higher self, my spirit guide, or some other spirit to give me a sigil, usually representing their name. This method takes a lot of practice. I have even seen people use their birth charts in astrology to create sigils. One popular form of creating a sigil is using the Rosy Cross. The Rosy Cross sigil creator is usually used by people who practice the Kabbalah. Usually you'll find this cross looking like this, written in Hebrew. If you don't read Hebrew, you could also get the English version, which looks like this. Now, how you use it is basically you play connect the dots, only this time it's with letters. Starting with the first letter, you draw that little circle or make that big dot at the first letter, and then connect the next letter in the name, and then the next, and then the next, and so forth until you get to the very last letter, and then you make that little line, and it looks something like this. And then when you place that on top of the sigil creator, it looks like this. This here is for the sigil Malkuth, which is part of the Tree of Life. All you have to do is type in the Rosy Cross sigil creator or the Rosy Cross sigil creator in any search engine, and you can come up with this. You can just print it up, download the picture. You might have to type in the English version. And now for the most popular way to create a sigil, we are going to start out by writing down our intent on a piece of paper. But before we do that, we want to write down what we want as clearly as possible using as few words as possible. And you want to make sure you write it in a assertive fashion that's not going to be, one day I will get a new car, one day I'm going to get a new job. No, you want to state it in the affirmative. I have a new car. I will gain a new car. I prefer to leave the I will because that still leaves the potential for future. You want this in your life now, so you want to write it down as firmly as possible as if it has already happened. And you're going to write this in capital letters because this speaks to the subconscious mind, saying that it's being shouted out to the other side, but except for on paper. And then what we are going to do is we are going to cross out every repeating letter. Now, some people will also remove all the vowels, and I leave my vowels in. Unless it's got too many letters to begin with, I don't think that hurts to leave them in. I have seen it done both ways. So in this picture, I did just that, okay? And now what you are going to do is you are going to start drawing a picture with the letters. Now, there is no rhyme or reason for this. You could have a letter upside down, left, right, it doesn't matter, sideways, diagonal. You can even use remaining lines that have already been used for a letter to add to the next letter. A good example would be a W. If you have a W and an M, well, you can combine them because all a W and an M is the same letter, only in reversed. So you could use one letter to represent both. Like the F here. As you can see in one of the next pictures I'm going to show you, I turned one of the lines from the F into an I. And now at the bottom, as you see, this is our sigil. Now, you could leave it here, but why do that? You can personalize it. and disguise the letters to make it look like random squiggly lines. Now, again, there's no rhyme or reason for this either. You don't have to have sharp turns. You can curve them off. You can wiggle the lines, or you could even add new lines. In this picture, I have taken what I have learned by other sigils and decorated it accordingly. And this is my final sigil to represent new friendship. Now, after you create a sigil, now you have to charge it. Now, depending on what you are going to do with this sigil, depends on what you are going to do with it and how you are going to discharge it as well. You see, in most people, when they make these sigils, they create the sigil, they charge it, and they forget about it. They put it somewhere. They don't let the subconscious mind dwell on it anymore. This is valid. However, if you're writing your own book, you can also keep this sigil for your personal use in the future. Or you could be like the other occultists have done through the past, make their sigils and put them in books and publish them. But anyway, how you charge it is also up to you. There are so many different ways to charge and release these sigils into the astral plane or into your subconscious. There's so many different ways. There's probably just as many ways to do this as there are people who are creating them. Okay, some of the most common I have seen, people meditate on it. They go into an altered state and they just meditate on that sigil. Okay, this technique is kind of done when you are summoning a spirit with that sigil. I have seen people use discomfort. They will, look at the sigil and exercise and put all that energy into the sigil. I've also seen people use them in a form of sex magic by focusing on the sigil and what it means while having sex, or to say it politely, completing it. I've also seen people do yoga, set candles on top of the sigil to charge it. Quite literally, you're just basically focusing on the sigil and putting out energy into that sigil. And then, of course, you release that sigil. Most people like to tear the paper around the sigil, which is basically just get rid of extra paper because they're going to burn this sigil, and you don't want a lot of smoke. I've seen people just fold it up, put it in the house, bury it in the backyard. But in the end, after you create the sigil, you charge the sigil, you use the sigils. In the end, these steps go as create the sigil, charge the sigil, and then release the sigil or use the sigil, depending on what you're doing with the sigil, because there are different rituals for these. I mean, I've even seen people use these sigils and just draw them on candles. Now, I personally like to use, of course, the English letters, but I also use the Elder Futhark. And for those who do not know about that, it is basically a great alphabet from the Norse people. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about making the sigils, charging the sigils, and then releasing the sigils. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Thank you.